When you go into work with an organization, where do you usually find the organization?
Any organization, big or small, will be in one of 4 culture stages. Stage number 1, lowest performance. Here, it's an impulsive culture. The next one is hierarchical. So that's the top-down command and control culture. The next one is an independent culture. And then the highest performing culture is interdependent.
And then you give them the assessment, and then they're going to see the reality. Those are always painful.
The way that we approach it is meeting the client where they are. The point is to, just as a great performance coach does, is...
Yeah, so Tiffany, super stoked to have you. Thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
So it's hot over there, huh?
Yeah, it's warm, which is very unusual for London. I mean, where's the rain when you need it?
Right. Well, it's 80 degrees here in Southern California, which is unusually warm for this time of summer. You usually see that around August. But I'm not going to pin it on global warming, though. Just is what it is.
I was wondering.
I'm sure you were. Well, thanks for doing this. I do a little performance coaching too, so I'm really excited to get your take on it and talk about, some of the insights you've had. But I'd love to really get a sense for why you're on this kind of path. What were the formative conditions that led you down this path to be fascinated with coaching and helping people achieve peak performance and cultures, etc.?
The long version or the short version?
The medium-sized version.
Yeah, medium-sized, that's good. Okay, so I think it started really when I was a banker, and I feel like that's a previous life. It was literally last century.
I had one of those.
Did you? Yes, I know.
Yeah,
you did. Yeah, I want to hear about that.
I was a CPA last century for a bit.
Yeah, it's crazy, in comparison to the work we're doing now, right? And what it was that in banking, I loved it. We were a high performance culture. I was part of Credit Suisse First Boston. We won't say much about what happened in the end to Credit Suisse. But when I was there, I'd really fought hard to get to my place on the trading floor. I was one of 4 women, and I was on a trading floor of 200 guys. And it was a really testosterone-driven environment. And what happened was we had a merger during my time there. And overnight, it was like the lights went out. All of a sudden, nothing made sense, And I was sitting there thinking, oh my goodness, leaders don't actually know how to lead.
Is it a culture clash, or what was the root cause?
There's a saying that 80% of change initiatives fail, right? This was that we had a group of traders who joined on our floor, and they were all perfectly nice guys. It's just that they were going in, let's say, that direction over there, which was the opposite direction to the one that we were going in, which was why we were complementary, right? But the thing was, no one made that bridge. No one said, hey, we're going to bring you together. This is going to feel a little bit different. We're going to make a kind of new feeling out of both of you guys. It was more like a war of the cultures, that happened.
Interesting.
So that was kind of the impetus behind it. Plus, I was getting pretty stressed out. So I was on the trading floor, testosterone environment, and I had to fight really hard for every dime. And I got to the stage where I had chest pains, I had kind of rashes on my arms, and it was a bit of a wake-up call for me to realize, actually, I needed to step out of this environment.
That's interesting. It's unfortunate, but often, the case that you have to hit a wall, right? Through burnout or even sickness, which is obviously you were heading in that direction in order to take your own health seriously. And then that often sends you off on a new trajectory because you're like, hey, I don't want to go back into that environment. And so you start asking better questions about what you should be doing or what you really want to be doing, what's your purpose, those type of questions, right? It sounds like that's what happened with you.
Yeah, exactly.
Did you go back and study? What was the path like?
I think that the thing that happens when you do that, when you press pause, is that serendipity starts to be able to come your way, right?
And that's true, right? You stop all activity, then it allows for possibility again. Yeah.
So I was on the trading floor still. I was literally going to leave in 2 weeks. And my best friend called me up and he said, have you read this article in the Financial Times? It's about this woman, and she had 5 shoe shops in the States. She couldn't grow her business, and she got a coach, and after 5 years, she had 57 across the States. And as he told me that, I was like, wow, that's like lid off potential, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And what if we could do that for the whole organization?
Mm-hmm.
Like all organizations. And that's been my mission ever since.
Where did you get like your foundational coaching skills or qualifications?
Yeah, I was trying to work out where to get those from. You know, I'd heard about coaching and I went to do an MBA because, you know, I was on a great career trajectory.
Which taught you nothing about coaching, I'm sure.
Nothing about leadership.
No, same with mine. Yeah.
You know, this is about how to manage a business. It's business administration. Like it's correlations, it's, you know, accounting sheets. There isn't space for other stuff. Right. And this just underlined this thing that actually, you know, leaders don't get taught how to lead.
By the way, on pinning that statement, I'm not sure you can teach leaders how to lead.
Oh, that's interesting because that's exactly what.
Because I'm finishing a PhD in global leadership and change, and there's really not much about leading that I learned in the entire program. I learned a lot of theory, concepts. I learned how to write. I learned how to do research. But, you know, leading? No, I learned all that on the battlefield and, you know.
That's really interesting to hear you say that. And that is the bit that is very difficult to get to. And it's what you do in coaching, right? Coaching, it actually develops people, it develops mindsets, it develops performance. And so what we do is we take people on that journey, but in a leadership frame and develop their leadership skills in that way. You know, there's that saying, you can only take people as far as you're prepared to go yourself. Mm-hmm. Right. You know, that is one of the tenets to, we call it transformational leadership, but this leadership that's of a completely different paradigm.
Hi, Mark Devine here from SealFit. After 2 years of development, I'm super stoked to announce the launch of SealFit supplements and our first product, SealFit Electro Greens. This is the highest quality organic greens you can find, combined with electrolytes into one powerful supplement. Take with 8 ounces of water in the morning or add to your smoothie to get your day kicked off right with the proper nutritional supplementation and hydration support. And you can also use it as a pick-me-up booster during the day or after a workout. It dissolves immediately, and believe it or not, it tastes great. I've had many testimonials already saying it's the best tasting greens that they have ever tried. So hoo-yah, SealFitSupplements.com, or you can find it on Amazon by searching for SealFit Electro Greens. Hoo-yah. Let's do this. Divine out. That is delicious.
Yeah, there's two paths I could go down, and I want to go down on both. One is there are definitely coaches going to be listening to this, or people exploring coaching. You know as well as I do, many people are looking at coaching and wanting to get off the treadmill, and they're looking at that as an option. And then the other is, you know, the actual work that you do, and how do we, you know, impact leaders. First, like, what are the skills of a highly effective coach? Let's talk executive coaching, corporate leadership, and team transformation.
There are all different schools of coaching, right? The coaching that I specialize in is in organizations. So it's like, you know, I mean, Sir John Whitmore, our founder, he coined the term performance coaching. And so performance coaching, that was the first time the word coaching was used to describe something outside of sports. So all forms of coaching outside of sports are actually derived from there.
I didn't know that. John Whitmore, huh?
Yes, Sir John Whitmore, the racing driver.
Okay. Was he knighted for his work in coaching or for racing?
He wasn't. He came knighted.
He came knighted. Oh my gosh.
But you know what? The really positive thing about him coming knighted was that he had a lot of money to basically go and explore and, you know, find out about this and forge the path.
What's the name of the organization?
Performance Consultants.
So he has a model, or you guys have a particular model.
So John co-created the GROW model.
Goal, reality, options, way forward.
GROW, reality, options, will is the one that John created. That one, yeah, it's the most used coaching model in the world. It's used by the US Army, Google, Johnson & Johnson, you know, to name a few. The thing is, and John used to say this, there is a problem with GROW, right? Because it's just a framework. It's just a framework. So what about like the underpinning skills. And that's where the magic happens. I
Right.
think the ability to hold someone as full of potential, as being able to achieve anything that they set their heart on, all of those sort of things that come into great coaching and create the magic.
How much of your job is helping people just remove obstacles, remove both mental obstacles or even structural obstacles? Again, it seems to me in my work, oftentimes it's not gaining a new skill for the leader or gaining new knowledge. It's letting go of, cherished ideas and behaviors that aren't serving them and stuff like that. So removing obstacles.
Yeah. And what I notice about your work is that you talk a lot about fear, right? And so if you're in a place of fear, then you probably hold on.
You're going to grip.
Yeah. Grip harder. Whereas if you can step into the place of trust, then you're letting go. And that's the place where, magic happens.
I assume you do one-on-one coaching?
Yes.
Okay. So in those one-on-one relationships, how do you help an individual first understand if they're contracted into fear, and then to help them let it go or to move beyond that?
Yeah. Well, to answer really from my coaching place, because the other thing that we do is like enable whole organizations to
Right.
let go of the fear. And
So the whole culture working at
Yeah.
that's an interesting, I want to come back to that.
yeah.
Let's start out with the individual leader though.
Yeah. Individuals. So from my coaching place, you will feel it. You will feel it. And that person will be able to feel themselves holding on somewhere. There will be a trigger that's happening, probably that's bringing this up. It's like, oh no, I can't do this. I can't do it because all these stories, these made up stories. And then it's like opening the door to, well, what if? And if you did step into that place, and actually before you even go there, letting go of all of that stuff, how would it feel if you achieved your goal? And usually that right there enables them to, step over that interference.
Do you bring any developmental psychology, like stages of consciousness, into your work to help leaders understand where they might be kind of stuck at a certain kind of positionality based upon, conditioning that might come from church, from their family, from,
Human tendencies. Yeah, exactly. I'm heading into the organizational culture work because right there we've got a culture maturity model.
Yeah, because whole cultures can get stuck at a stage that isn't serving them. Yeah.
And if we think of an organization as being like an individual, right, then any organization, big or small, will be in one of 4 culture stages. And that's really fascinating.
So what are these stages?
So what they are is, so we're going from low performance to high performance, okay? And in the low performance area, there's a lot of interference. And in the high performance area, there's a lot of potential being able to come through. So the interference has gone down. And interference, we talked about fear. It can come in the form of all sorts of things like that, self-sabotaging beliefs.
I'm imagining a grid with potential and interference.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, I'm going to draw here because we've got a camera. So basically, there's a curve. It's called the performance curve. And so this is low performance over here, and this is high performance over here.
So low performance is high interference, low potential.
Yes, exactly. And so we're going through these cultures, maturity stages. And so stage number 1, lowest performance. Here, it's an impulsive culture. So here, leaders are reactive. There's no plan. There are no processes. And it's quite a startup culture, one might say, but really one spends one's day firefighting. The next one is hierarchical. And it's really interesting because a lot of the world's organizations have hierarchical culture, right? So that's the top-down command and control culture. And in this culture, leaders are thinking, I've got the answer. And the people who are working in that culture are thinking, okay, so they've got the answer. That means I don't have the answer. So I'm just going to follow the rules and do what I'm told. The next one is an independent culture. And this is me as a banker, as a star performer. So as leaders who empower, I had my goals, I knew where I was going. However, the thing that undercuts this is competition, internal competition, and also silos. So, departments not talking to each other. And then the highest performing culture is interdependent. And this is where values and vision unite and people believe we're truly successful together.
That's terrific. As you were working through those, I was just mapping them to other developmental psychology kind of stages, right? And they map perfectly.
Yeah.
In fact, we have our own stage model. We call it the 5 plateaus. So the impulsive would be equal to like our lowest, which is we call survivor, right? So individuals who are kind of triggered into survivor. I mean, most everybody went there during COVID. Then you tend to like act out of self-preservation and become very impulsive and reactive. And leaders can even have a high intellect, but kind of operate emotionally out of these lower places, right? And that's how cultures will get stuck, because the leader is basically bringing that energy, and everything drops the lowest common denominator, and it's often the leader, right? You see
exactly.
That. Our second we call the protector, and that's your bureaucratic kind of top-down military, and there's a ton of organizations still that operate, and some necessarily so that way. And then the third one you described we call the achiever, which is that expert individualist putting points on the board. And there's a positive and a shadow side to that. And then your fourth one would be integrator for us.
I think it's just so helpful to be able to portray that back and to give people and organizations a map.
So I'm curious, of those four, when you go into work with an organization, where do you usually find the organization if you've been called in?
This will not surprise you at all, Mark, but we ask the organization where they think they are on that model.
And they probably all say, we're a performance organization.
Well, it's interesting. You get different responses. And the thing is that it just reminded me of someone that we worked with who's called John McFarlane. And he was chairman of Barclays Bank and on the board of Westpac now. And you know what he used to say is he used to say to the companies he was, leading, he used to say, listen, we need to measure our culture. Okay, we just need to do it. It might be horrible, but we need to find out where we are, because then we can start the journey to where we're going.
It's like a cultural 360. Like, let's take an honest assessment.
Yeah.
Those are always painful. You're like, oh, really?
Yeah,
okay.
Exactly.
But you got to baseline it.
Yeah. And so, as we're talking, it's this kind of like what's good for the individual is good for the organization. It's a lot of parallels there.
So most people are going to assess higher than they are, I assume.
Or you get the very critical ones.
Okay, yeah. Makes sense.
Those ones as well.
Let's say, and I love that you have this cultural maturity index, because you can kind of ask them, like, where do you think? And then you give them the assessment, and then they're going to see the reality. You're going to map them on that performance curve. And we know from change theory, Kotler being the granddaddy of that, right, with his 8-step model, that most change initiatives fail. How do you ensure that, knowing that they're not as high in the performance and they want to move up this performance curve, how do we make it stick? Like, how do we affect the change?
So leaning again on coaching principles, the way that we approach it is meeting the client where they are. Sometimes one might think, oh, why can't they want to do this, that, and the other? But that's not the point. The point is to, just as a great performance coach does, is to accompany the client on the journey and open the door to what's possible. And basically, the client is in charge of their journey, very much that. And, sometimes we meet resistance and we plan for that. So it's always wise to plan for resistance and to have the communications. This is going to feel different. I'm just thinking of one time we were working with MasterCard. We were in St. Louis, and I was actually there with the team. And so what happened was, it was the pilot. There was this guy called Mike who hated anything like this. I mean, literally hated it, right?
There's always that person.
Yeah. And so we were like, oh my God, at the end of the pilot, everyone was like, Mike, what does Mike think? Anyway, Mike's like, it's terrific. So they made a t-shirt and it said, even Mike liked it.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that. Yeah, because you got to get buy-in from everybody, right? Because like you said, one bad apple will spoil the bunch. Who's, kind of like nodding his head, but inside he's saying, this will never work. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
I've been through 10 of these before. No change ever
Yeah,
happens.
I bet that was Mike's track.
It was probably his internal dialogue, right?
Yeah.
You make a comment that top-down hierarchical organizations, are always going to have a culture that is suboptimal in performance, right? I know those aren't your words, those are mine, but Why is that? Why is the hierarchical kind of top-down approach, whether it's the culture or the structure or the leader, it's, who kind of embodies that?
I think it's fascinating because it's kind of counterintuitive. And actually, it's a bit of a kind of hangover from in human evolution. Like our family structures have been quite top down, haven't they? I mean, I grew up in quite a sort of hierarchically structured family.
Very British thing, by the way.
Yeah, right.
A little less so in America.
Yeah.
We got away from that.
Yeah. We've got that over here. And so the thing about hierarchy, so that whole idea of command and control is, as I was saying before, the leader has the answers. I've got an example of that. So in the 90s, again, I was working for a Japanese bank. And this bank was renowned for having a hierarchical culture, okay? And there was one guy in this bank who signed off every decision that was ever made.
Oh my gosh.
I mean,
That'll
it
slow
was
things
insane.
down.
He literally just sat there, So the message to the rest of the organization is, okay, so he's got the answer. You certainly don't have the answer, right? So again, why show up and kind of like bring all your goodies?
Yeah, there's no need for innovation because he's got the answer.
Right. No need for innovation. And then the other thing is there's an underlying fear, right? Because if you haven't got it signed off by this guy, then things could happen where you're not allowed to do such and such. So literally, you're sort of in a straitjacket. And so right there, you have disempowered 2,000 people. We talk about entrepreneurialism. You mentioned innovation. You're not getting all that stuff coming through. So hierarchical cultures, they are shown to be, and on that maturity model I was talking about, one of the lowest performing cultures.
That need for certainty, I think, drives that, right? And obviously we're in the age of VUCA, volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. So how do let's say you're working with an organization that is, or a leader that is kind of prone to this top-down authoritarian approach. A lot of them kind of must seize up when they're faced with VUCA. So how do we help them deal with uncertainty and be more comfortable in uncertainty?
Yeah. I mean, the thing I'm thinking about is what you mentioned before, which is the greatest test to leaders to date was COVID, right? We saw leaders doing all sorts of things. In my experience in that situation, so I very much felt, okay, so I saw that I had a signpost up ahead, okay? The road was forking. I could either go running down this road that was labeled fear, or I could step into the trust and walk down that path. The reason that I was being sent into this fear place was, because COVID was potentially devastating to our organization, because we're an in-person organization all over the world and we're on client sites. So I was like, oh my goodness, the repercussions of this are just extraordinary. So I had a word with myself, stepped into that trust zone. And I'm not saying that I'm perfect because I know that fear zone, I that's a well-trodden path. It's just that this time I did actually, see it. I saw the crossroads and stepped into the trust zone. And yeah, we did a number of things in our organization. One of them, coming together and sharing the intention with the whole organization that we wanted to get through it together. And that was our intention. And everybody did their part. Some people went down to 3 days a week to look after kids who are out of school. Some people, they did furlough, which was a UK government scheme. And then other people like myself, we worked, but we took 20% pay cut, on the understanding we'd be paid back afterwards when we got through, kind of thing. And it was a really amazing time.
Well, that's neat. What a great success story. And, you have to model what you coach / teach. Obviously, you have to be flexible and, kind of decentralized enough to be able to have that kind of teamwork to come together and to collaborate to solve. So this idea of becoming a collaborative culture, openness, broad perspective, compassionate, heartfelt communication, it takes a lot of growth, development, right? And this is, my mind near and dear to my work is helping kind of unlock that we call vertical growth, right? That vertical development. So that people change not what they think, but how they think, how their mind works, right? Whole mind thinking, right back to Aristotle's ideas. So you also make this comment that and very rigid cultures and hierarchical kind of authoritarian leaders are not prone, or they have difficulty with that personal growth. Why is that? And how can we help someone who like understands it maybe intellectually now, and they're like, okay, yeah, I can't keep doing the same things and expect different results because I'm not getting them, and AI is going to just crush us. How do I evolve to become more?
Yeah, it's making me think of an example where we worked with a company called Linda. And this company is an industrial gas company.
Named Linda.
Linda.
That's almost like a trick. The environmentalists won't come after us if we call ourselves name ourselves after a girl. And that's awesome.
Now, the thing is, people won't have heard this company, but it is, industrial gas. And they're the people that put the fizz in Coca-Cola and Pepsi.
Oh, interesting. Really?
Yeah.
So Coca, they don't do their own fizz?
So they have to get the gas from somewhere.
Oh, the gas.
Carbon dioxide.
Right. Oh, wow. That sounds like a big business.
And that's a very combustious substance.
Yeah.
So what happens is that, in Linda, they wanted so their performance criteria was to improve safety. So that's the incidents and accidents that were happening. So we worked with them. Now, we were working with them, and there was this guy called Bruce in Texas, and I'm not going to do the accent, but it was absolutely fabulous. He was like, this is never going to work, basically, when he heard, what we were talking about. I mean, he was just shaking his head, all sorts. So and he was, trying out some of these concepts, he actually had a complete change of heart. He became a great champion of the work. A little different to Mike, because this was in the safety environment. And, the thing that they couldn't believe was that the leaders had this revelation. They were like, why have we been telling these people how to do safety the whole time? Like, they know everything about safety. And the people who were working for them were thinking and were saying, oh my goodness, finally you're asking us to use our brains.
Right.
So that's the thing that needs to happen, in organizations, like enabling, tapping into all that potential. And
it's trust, isn't it? Right. So trusting that, people actually have good ideas and will do their job. And so you create a trust culture, then you don't need a lot of rules and regulations like in a top-down.
Exactly. Values-based.
You have a set of values or an ethos like the SEAL teams.
Yeah.
And we had a very powerful ethos. So everyone knew kind of what the boundaries were. And then they had a lot of autonomy within those boundaries.
Yeah, that's it. That is totally, I was really interested actually to hear about the SEALs, because I imagined that was top down. And so you saying that.
The military is top down and other services are top down, but the SEALs are very, very decentralized. And we work in very small teams, sometimes alone or, 2 people all the way up to maybe 12 or 14, sometimes a little bit larger, but we don't necessarily like it. Like a big, counter-terrorist kind of operations will come together. But we've learned that for maximum effectiveness, you got to bring out the full potential of every team player. And that means you got to have a high trust, high reliability organization because it's high risk. And I think that's a key point. Like if organizations and leaders today could understand that the risk they face is as high as we did in the SEALs, it just may not be life or your life at a body level, but it's certainly the life of your organization that is at extreme risk from, the current transitions we're going through in our culture. And in order to navigate extreme risk, you got to have a high reliability, high trust organization because everybody needs to row hard in the same direction.
Love that.
What do you think are the most important leadership skills for the coming years?
Ever since I left the bank, I've been thinking about that, right? So John Whitmore, when he started this work, he saw a lever in organizations. So organizations as a lever for positive change. Because if we can have leaders who are involved leading these huge organizations that, have hundreds of thousands of employees within them, then we're going to have a different impact on those people, on, stakeholders, on shareholders, on future generations, and on the planet.
Right.
So ethics is right at the heart of it. Also authenticity, because this is about rehumanizing the workplace, and right. I think that, COVID has been extraordinary in so many ways. And one of the really positive things that's come out of a complete nightmare is that organizations now understand about the importance of culture, about the importance of, the role that work has to play in people's lives. Organizations have the potential to become the platform through which people fulfill their potential.
And experience tremendous growth.
Yes.
So instead of thinking of personal development as something that happens over there or back at home, right, it happens through the organization. Our model overlays Robert Keegan's deliberately developmental organization. And I think that everybody, every organizational leader needs to get on board with, creating an organization that has a growth culture where you come in not just to do work, but you come in to work on yourself as well.
Yeah.
You talked about authenticity and some other qualities. One of the pitfalls or maybe challenges is that oftentimes a leader will look at that and say, oh yeah, I can use that as a tactic.
Yeah. Tactics.
Right? How do I act authentic? Yeah. Tell me how to act and I'll put that mask on and I'll act authentic.
Yeah.
And of course, this is not what you mean, right? We have to embody these.
It's like, you just saying that you've been on that leadership course. The bit that matters is what happens to the bit between our ears, right? Is this what we bring? That's what we're working on. It's the mindset and behavior shift.
You use the term mindset a few times. I mean, I can, see that just in the broad sense of kind of like your attitude and, how you use your mind and your perspectives and your beliefs. But then there's also Carol Dweck's growth mindset, and there's this idea of exponential mindset and an adaptive mindset. Do you have a particular mindset kind of model that you work with or definition?
Okay, so here's the thing, right? This is a great exercise. This is from our transformational leader program. And what it is that, so now, Mark, you're looking at me, right? Mm-hmm. So if you look at me with the lens of this person is a problem, what do you feel when you think of that?
My mind immediately rejects that notion that I could think that. So
too good at this.
But if I were to think that, I would feel limited or contracted, I think, or like this relationship isn't going to go anywhere because of this perspective.
Yeah. So we're already creating what's going to happen, in that expectation. So the next mindset is this person has a problem.
This person has a problem. Yeah. Then I have a problem because I'm projecting it on her.
So this one, people might feel like taking care of me kind of thing. She's got a problem, poor thing kind of thing. She's certainly not capable. So that's the second mindset. So the third one, and this is the transformational leader mindset, spoiler alert, is that this person is on a learning journey and is perfectly capable, resourceful, and whole.
Mm-hmm. I like that.
So as you look at me and think that, how does that make you feel?
Yeah, it makes me feel good for you.
And
which
you,
makes
right?
me feel good for me too, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I want to be that as well.
Yeah. And what you said there is what leaders say, because once they have adopted that mindset and chosen, because you have to choose, right? This is a conscious choice to step into a different way of doing things. Once they choose that, then they feel like a weight's lifted from their shoulders, because no longer are all these people walking around them being problems, with problems, all the rest of it.
It takes quite a lot of work if someone's stuck in one of those other mindsets, though, because that's the conditioning of those mindsets happens from a very young age.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's difficult for people to see it because you're inside the bottle and you can't read the label. In my program, I use the term background of obviousness. And what I mean by that is it's in your background, so you can't see it, but it's obvious to everyone else because you kind of wear it on your sleeve.
I love that. So good.
Boo. And it shows up like that. Boo.
Oh,
there it is again.
Brilliant. That is just fantastic. Oh, I'm going to be quoting you on that one. I'm going to say, Mark does this.
No church.
It is just like that. So here's the thing about leadership. It is a position of responsibility. We have to be responsible to ourselves and to others. Like, I meditate every morning, and if I don't meditate, so I've got a co-CEO and it's my husband.
Oh, wow. Great.
I know.
So your other CEO knows if you didn't meditate, you're not going to have the best day.
No. He doesn't know if I've meditated or not. He just knows because of the way I'm being, which is so annoying. but that's it. I'm off kilter. I've got to, eat well. I've got to exercise. I've got to keep myself balanced, because in that position of leadership, otherwise, when the challenges come along, I'm all off kilter and I might charge off down the route of fear.
That's right. I'm so glad you brought that up, because I was going to ask you about, your practices for maintaining that balance, right, as a CEO. Because I'm right there with you, and this is kind of a core part of our teaching as well. Is like that morning ritual and the evening ritual as well are very important, to take the time to to ground, to reflect, to open up to gratitude, and to get your mind straight. And you do that through meditation. I've been fortunate enough to be meditating since I was 21, and I've just
I know, I read
such
that.
an important thing. Though.
I was like, you were way ahead of, I was in banking when you were 21.
Well, that was 1985, and I just was freaking lucky. It was one of those synchronicity things. I was getting into a martial art, and the founder of the style of karate was also a Zen master.
That opened a whole other door.
It changed everything for me. I was heading down the path, after my CPA and I got my MBA at NYU, I was going to go into trading and make a lot of money. And it was the time in the meditation bench that completely transformed my mind and my self-concept, in the moments where I was able to drop off into, wherever, not here, but not anywhere. I came back with knowingness, and the knowingness told me I was meant to be a warrior, not a CPA, not a finance person. So I left it all behind.
You were internally led, which I think is the other thing, which is that, because we've all got this GPS and we need to listen to it as an internal GPS. I was hearing it when I was on the trading floor, and I literally was, I mentioned before that I had chest pains and rashes and everything. And I had an image in my mind, and it was of a candle. And that candle was me. And if it went out, that meant that I died. And that was what was going to happen if I stayed on the trading floor.
It was burning down too fast. But I think that kind of the key point here is, even in all the developmental work you do through your coaching and your own personal practices, that ultimately authenticity and these qualities that are necessary for this age of VUCA, exponential technology, are the qualities of the heart now. The stillness, the ability to be present, the ability to open your heart and be, in a compassionate relationship with others instead of judging them, instead of like always having the answer, taking the mask off, And I think, AI can never take that away from us, because that's our human natural state, right? So
yeah,
coming back to ourselves really is kind of the most important leadership skill.
I totally agree. And, the thing that I had to do was find myself. I had to go back and find myself and take off all these pieces of armor that I put on. Because, if I met anyone, I was like, I'm in derivative sales, and they'd be like, okay, they wouldn't go any further than that. That didn't mean anything to them. But, I was in a kind of like, I put myself in the box of untouchable or whatever it was. I had to take all that off. Yeah, that was really, really hard, becoming vulnerable and being seen by myself, let alone everyone else.
But on the other side of that, you can't imagine not having done it.
Yeah, if I hadn't done it, I mean, it was the candle going out.
Yeah, who knows? The candle would be snuffed out. Fascinating. What a great conversation. I really appreciate you for your work and for joining me today.
Well, back at you. I mean, I'm fascinated by what you're up to. Yeah, and it's lovely to meet like-minded people who are doing this work.
It's important, right? There's a lot of confusion and kind of chaos and negativity in the world. So it's important to have these conversations, but, just kind of demonstrate that, all that is a choice. You don't have to buy into that.
Yeah. Amen.
Pause, breathe, slow down. As Punjab, who said, stillness is the most important thing. Don't waste time not doing it. Right? Even in the middle of a busy day, you can take a moment to just breathe, center yourself. We had a saying in the SEALs: pause, breathe, think, and then act. It's not easy to do, though.
Yeah. Well, that disengages the amygdala kind
That's
of
right.
response, doesn't it? So crucial, however. Not easy to do, but crucial.
You should write a book. Have you written a book yet?
I've written a book. 6th edition is coming out in September. and it's called Coaching for Performance. The original text was written by Sir John Whitmore, but we've completely revised it.
Oh,
and
awesome.
I'm on there as co-author. And I've got another book that I'm thinking about, which is kind of around the conversation that we talked about today. Transformational leadership. It's like that. How do you do it?
Oh, cool. Well, let me know if I can help at all with that.
Yeah.
And where can people find you, connect with you if they're interested in working with you, that type of stuff?
Yeah. So website, performanceconsultants.com, and they can connect with me on LinkedIn, Tiffany Gaskell. I'm actually the only Tiffany Gaskell practically out there because it's such an unusual name.
That is an unusual name. I like it.
So that's handy. And yeah, that book is for pre-order on Amazon, and there's a bonus goodie there for the pre-orders.
Terrific.
Hey everyone, this is Mark Devine, founder of SealFit and Unbeatable Mind, and I'm super stoked to announce that my new book, Uncommon, is due out from St. Martin's Press this summer, July 16th. And we've launched a pre-order campaign. You can learn more about that at readuncommon.com to try to get early awareness for the book, which I hope will help a lot of people, where I go and do a deep dive on the 5 mountains of personal mastery: physical, mental, emotional, intuitional, and spiritual. Uncommon, simple principles for an extraordinary life. Check it out at readuncommon.com, and thank you for your support and being part of the change that you want to see in this world. Hoo-yah. Divine out.
Well, Tiffany, thank you so much again. I appreciate you and I appreciate your time, and best of luck with everything. And let me know if I can help out with anything.
Pleasure. It's wonderful to have met you, Mark. And I love that your last name is Divine.
Go figure, right?